Hello, okay, this is your second week of our training in content writing. This week we are going to talk about article writing. Specifically, if you visit my website, you can see the outline for today. We are scheduled to discuss introduction to article writing, title and planning, the structure of the article, know the target audience, type of articles, um, characteristics of a well-written article. So let me explain a bit. I have this Adobe file that I'll share in my lecture, so you can always open it and go over whatever is being discussed. So briefly speaking, when we talk about articles or article writing, the first thing you need to know is that an article is an informative piece of content. But you cannot confuse it with blogs, because blogs are more personal and they kind of talk directly to the target audience. You can talk about yourself as well in a blog, but not in an article. An article is supposed to have a more formal and third person tone. Usually we have two types of articles, and they are either informative or written in a narrative style. uh, when we talk about content writing and article writing, to be specific, we must choose our titles properly. And let me give you some tips about how or what to keep in mind when you plan your titles. Okay, the first thing you need to understand is what is the purpose of writing the content, the article. There are two scenarios, or most commonly there are two scenarios. In one scenario, you are working as a writer for someone, and you have taken someone's order to write an article for his or her website or his or her product. Or the other scenario is when you are writing it yourself to promote your own product or service, or your own thoughts or something. So in either case, the main thing you need to focus on is that the title should be related to what you want to promote, or the goal or the objective of that article, whatever you're writing it for. And it should be catchy enough to attract readers. The readers should see it wherever they see it. It should make them want to open that article and read all of it. The second point we need to talk about is that it should highlight the needs of the audience. That means, after understanding the purpose of the article, you need to try to think about why the target audience would want to read your article. What are the things he or she would be looking for, and what you can offer so that they click the article and read it. So I will show you how I go about planning the structure and doing my research, so that you can, of course you don't need to mimic me completely, but it would give you a lead on what you need to do. The third point here is do thorough research. There's a point: do thorough research on the topic. I'll explain how you can do research, and how to what things to keep in mind, or how to get more ideas to make the article entertaining and interesting to read. The fourth point here is draft and plan the content structure. As I work on my article in this video, you will get an idea about how to go on with this. Make subheadings. Now, one thing I want to say about make subheadings is, when you plan your subheadings, make sure that whatever you choose as a subheading, it's connected to the main title. There should be a flow, and it's like, something like a guide. There is always a step-by-step flow in the content that a good writer would keep in mind. Do not make your ideas sound haphazardly arranged. There should be a good flow. So I always tell my writers, or people who I have trained, to plan their subheadings and make sure there's a good flow, and it connects to the main title and connects to each of the subheadings that will follow. Make the content specific to satisfy the requirements. Now, you see, some writers have this, what should I say, they do not understand the importance of keeping the content crisp and to the point. And eventually, if you have been a blogger and if you're taking this course, you would understand at the end of this video why some of your clients might complain that your content is not up to their expectations, or it's not talking about what they wanted you to talk about. Because along the line, when writing, if you do not follow a proper plan, you can go off the point. So to say, you can lose direction and talk about other irrelevant things without keeping your mind on the main topic that you had initially selected. At the end of writing the content, proofreading and revising the content is a very, very important step. For this, what I usually do is, after I finish writing content, I take a break for an hour or 2 hours, and then I revisit my content. Because as a writer, in my experience, it happens that you write content but you do not see your own mistakes, at least not immediately. But after some time, when you revisit the content, you get to see some typographical errors, grammatical issues, or awkwardness that you might have left unintentionally in the content. And sending that kind of content forward to your client, or submitting it on a website, or whatever you are trying to do, will only tarnish your image and ruin chances of you getting more jobs. And so it's always better to take this step very, very seriously. Check plagiarism. I'm sure you must have heard about plagiarism even in high school, and even as a professional, you must know there are tools, there are free tools to check plagiarism, then there are paid tools. I always recommend going for paid tools. I use Copyscape. Turnitin is for academic purposes, so I don't quite use that. But there are other tools as well. If you know them, go ahead and purchase them, try them. But make sure you always go for the purchased plagiarism checkers, because the free versions are usually not that effective. Okay. If you read these notes, I have explained all these things in detail. I actually give you an overview of what research skills require, how you can go about it, why it is important to make the right title. And I have also mentioned about like from if you're working for an SEO, from an SEO perspective, uh, you see, you will have to work with keywords, so you have to make sure that you use those keywords logically in the title. Do not make them stand out with an awkward tone in them, or something really flat and meaningless. And if you're writing for SEO purposes, you can make very interesting titles using words like how to, why, did you know, tips and top 10s, top 5, top 7s, or 8 essentials, things like that. When we talk about planning the structure here, if you read all through this notes, you will realize that I've explained how to use H1, H2, H3, H4 tags. If you can use them down to the H6 tags, it's even better. Now, with modern digital marketing strategies and things that Google picks up on, most people encourage their writers to use as many of these tags as possible. H1, H2. H1 is actually the main title that has to be used once. H2, you can use them 2 times, 3 times max. If you have more subheadings, try to organize them so that you have a flow. It's like usually people subcategorize them. H3 will follow under H2 titles. H4 can fall after H3 titles. So plan your content properly. It depends on how you are writing it, what you have planned. Every content will have its own unique structure. So I don't really have a hard and fast rule on this, because I believe in making sure that there's a beauty in the content flow. So you need to do what is best based on what you are writing. When it comes to titles, another important information I would like you to keep in mind is that the title should not be more than 70 characters. And if you are writing for SEO purposes, you will also have to learn how to write meta descriptions, and these have to be less than 160 characters or 160 characters. It should not exceed 160 characters. Now, when we talk about characters and words, there's a difference. This is a word. This is a word. This is a word. So when we talk about 160 characters, we don't mean 160 words. We are talking about each of these alphabets, including the spaces. These should be a total of 160 characters. Usually, in my experience, it's up to 20 to 21 words that sum up to 160 characters. So keep your meta descriptions short. We will go into meta descriptions and all these details a bit more in future videos, in future lectures. So let's just stop here on this topic for now. Know the target audience. Now you see, if you're writing for a B2B scenario, that means you're talking to adults. You're talking to people that are already familiar with the topic. So when writing, do not treat them like people that do not know anything. Keep it informative, keep it factual, keep it serious. Do not, like, have a childish tone or immature tone or something that is too bland and boring. Keep it apt and meaningful. If you're writing for students, keep your tone more explanatory, keep it more detailed, and break it down into simple meaningful sentences. There is this rule that most of we professionals tell our writers, and that is the KISS rule. Keep it simple, silly. That applies in different niches, not only for students. Even if you're writing for an audience that has kids in there, or maybe people that are not very professional, that could be very simple-minded laymen. So as a writer, it's your duty to try to understand the target audience and write accordingly. I have explained this a bit more with 3 reasons to know your target audience. Make sure you are creating the right content for the right audience. Understand and create content that will benefit the reader. Make sure the content converts visitors into buyers. If you're writing to promote someone's business, and if you are trying to increase sales, then you should steer your content in a rather strategic, a call to action kind of content, in which you can entice them to buy or hire the person, things like that. So as a writer, these are all your responsibilities when you write. Tips to help you understand your target audience. I have explained a bit more on how you can understand your target audience a bit better. You need to think about questions like, what are the problems the company or products can solve? Who are the existing customers? Who is the competition? If you can understand who the competition is, you can visit their website, get an idea about what kind of content they write, get some nice ideas from there. You do not need to copy paste their content. Never copy paste or steal somebody else's content. Your content has to be unique, so just use the competition for an idea as a reference. Consider the demographics as your target. What kind of audience are you targeting? Are they aged people? Are they young people? Are they a mix of people between 20s and 35 or 35 above? You should also think about, why would the potential customers want to buy the product or service. You should also try to understand if they are seeking that product or service, if they have any curiosity. If not, then try to write content that will instill a sense of curiosity and want to know more about the product or service that you're writing for. In this notes, you will also read about the types of articles that there are. We have overviews, we have personal experiences, we have informational, expository, humor and satire. We have the top 10s, narratives. I have explained all these in details. So you can actually I would like you to read all these things and understand each type of article that we have. If you have any questions, you can always ask me, but I do think that my notes are quite self-explanatory. Just to keep it quick and short, overviews are more like a summary of whatever you're talking about. It could just be somehow like an insight into a book, or a summary of a product, its features, something very short. It should just be an overview, nothing too detailed. You should just highlight reasons why, or try to give the potential person to an idea about what the product and service is. Just a summary. Personal experiences, articles that are talking about what should I say, maybe scenarios in someone's life. It could be more related to traveling articles, travel articles, about counseling, random experiences, or about something, it could even be about a product or service, or people generally. Informational articles are usually talking about uh, any product or service that aims to help people get more information about it. Reviews are a very good explanation of informational articles. Then we have expositories. These tend to give readers a guide, or like recipes. We have technical writing, how to use certain equipment, things like that. Humor and satire are for people that are good with sarcastic and metaphoric a sense of writing. If you can write with a twisted humor, be sarcastic, mean sometimes, maybe. If you think you have that touch, then go for it. I find that very challenging, and it's not something I'm really good with. But if you think you have it in you, then you should explore that. Top 10s are usually talking about top 10 places to visit, top 10 gadgets to use in 2020, things like that. We have narratives. Usually, ebooks fall under this category. I explain, if you try to look at what ebooks are, they are more or less a collection of related articles bound together and linked together chapter by chapter to compile a single book. So anyway, articles that are narratives or story types are usually fictitious, and they highlight your creativity more or less. Infographics are not completely a lot of text. They have images in between, and I have added these two links here. I recommend using PictoCart if you're willing to pay for it. Initially, it used to be a free service, but now they've started charging people for it. But it is one of my favorite platforms. Then we have the Venngage, and I'll just take you through these. This is where we have infographics. There are ready-made templates that you can purchase or pay for and use. These are how they look. So you can put your text in between those places and make your information available in a diagrammatic format somehow. This is an example here. If I was working on an infographic, maybe like, let's go with this title: 5 things to do to be a true Quebecois infographic, whatever. You can change that, and then look at this diagram. I would write something that will go with this: let's learn to speak English fluently. This is good enough, you can just I just hope you got an idea about what infographics are. Then we have descriptive articles. These are usually describing people, places, events, talk about their features, their qualities. Then we have persuasive articles, and these are usually highlighting the pros and cons and inclined towards encouraging people to consider buying or hiring a particular service. Then we have characteristics of a well-written article. You see, when you come into the writing field, you will hear complaints about this is not high quality content, this is not high quality, or I need high quality content. So how do you gauge content, whether it is high quality or not? Let me explain this to you. When you talk about very good content, it has meaningful information, it has a lot of information, it offers the reader whatever he or she is looking for. That means a lot of research has been put into it, and as a writer, you have considered or thought about what information the potential or customer or the target audience would want to know or learn about that particular product or service you are writing about. High quality content must have clarity, and it must focus on the information you want to promote. And like I said, keep it simple, keep it crisp, use short sentences. If you can read these notes later, it will help you a lot. High quality content has to be organized. Make sure there is a sequence. Each subheading should be in a very good flow. There must be a consistent voice in the article. Like, some writers tend to have a fluctuating mood while writing, Initially they might start off with a lot of excitement, suddenly it becomes boring. They start off with very good sentences, maybe everything is in the past tense, suddenly they switch it to the present tense. um, Things like that, these are mistakes. So there should be consistency in the content. When we talk about language and choice of words, you need to make sure that you keep it simple and meaningful. Do not, sometimes I notice some writers try to throw in a lot of vocabulary in their writing, but it does not make any sense. So choose your words very carefully and make sure the language is easy to understand, and you have grammar and style. There are certain grammar rules that you must follow in the content, and this helps maintain a clarity in the content. Now let's talk about credibility of information. You see, while you're doing your research, do not get too overexcited or overzealous and add meanings and things yourself that could make a false impression on the reader. If you do that, you might be damaging your client's reputation. So I strictly discourage adding information or misinterpreting information or misguiding the reader. So make sure you do your research always and be as honest as possible, be original. Because if you are original, you are representing your client, and that will be good for your client. Or even if you're writing for your own business, be original. Inspiring and thought-provoking content. You see, the more research you do, the more meaningful content you have, you can actually give the readers something to think about. Let them think out of the box, and that is something you need to do as a writer as well. As you're doing your research, you need to think out of the box. So for the sake of this video, let's do a simple practice here. I had chosen this title for this session. Let's assume I have to write about 10 reasons to travel to Australia. Now, what I would do is Google. I'll turn to Google first of all. So let's close this. I'll paste the title here. Now you see, Google has become very advanced now. If my title is too specific, it will actually give me something very closely related, and naturally we go for the first few topics that we get. I would look at this. I would look at some other websites here. And why I'm doing this is because I like researching, and I usually compare 5-6 different articles to get ideas. Now this is good. Top 10 reasons why you should travel to Australia. And let's look here. What is the introduction about? Oops, there's a pop-up coming up. Okay, this is good. Okay, here are the points. This is where it's starting from. Okay, I'm just skimming through to get to collect my ideas. This looks quite resourceful. I like the ideas it has. It's kind of different. Let's look at this one. This is very good. Sydney. It looks like this article is highlighting special things you'll find in different parts of Australia. That sounds quite interesting too. So that's a different approach. This one has started with a video. I would have taken time to watch this video if I was not making this video for you right now. So I would recommend always, listen to the videos. You get some very. This side is also interesting. Okay. Let's keep that aside. I think this one looks more interesting. It's talking about Fraser Island. Okay, not so interesting though. I'm going to pick out the ones that I feel are more. This one is crossed out. Don't have time to watch a video. Oh, I hate pop-ups. This sounds good. I think I would stick to this and this. Forget about that one. I like the information in this one to be very specific. So what happens now is that I will write an introduction, but first I will gather all my points. Now, if I'm talking about 10 reasons, let us reduce this to 5 reasons just for the sake of this video, or maybe even 3 to keep it short. Now I will look for 3 very good reasons. I like the idea about the sunset. Now you see, I recommend switching this because as writers, we have to pay attention to plagiarism. To avoid plagiarism, one simple trick is to shuffle things up. A sunset and sunrise. Okay, so we don't want something exactly the same as this in our own content. So switch it up. Their first point was the road trips. No, I think that is too common. The wildlife. Wildlife looks interesting. So wildlife. I think I'll stop there because I want to mention 3 reasons to travel to Australia. Natural beauty. Yeah, natural beauty sounds good. Okay, now we can go on with this living outdoors. Outback beaches. Okay, now what I would do is let's shuffle this up a bit as well. You can put that up and down. See, I've mixed up the ideas, so even if I proceed with writing this, there won't be much similarity in the flow or anything, but you can see this way it would even be better. First we can talk about natural beauty, we can actually talk about the sunset, and then we can talk about the wildlife. So essentially what I'm trying to say is make sure you plan your content in a good flow. Rearrange the ideas always. Then, so this is the title. Now we will need an intro. These are our subheadings. After this you have to have the conclusion. If there were more points, I would have tried to organize them, maybe wildlife, and if you're talking about natural beauty, I might try to sum things up here. We can talk about beaches. Maybe I can briefly mention, I can make a subheading on beaches. I can make a subheading on climate. Or I can say variety in climate. That sounds better. This could be our subheading, friendly locals. This is good. Now what I will do is cut all of this. I had already made the title here. But anyhow, okay, this is my title. Now let's talk about formatting it, because in this in the word file here we mentioned talking about planning the content, and this is the paragraph in which I mentioned using H1, H2 and all of these. So this is our main title. Usually people use the H1 tab. The reason why I always talk about this and tell my writers to use these options in Microsoft Word is because it makes things so much easier for people that are publishing the content. Otherwise they will have to use the heading tags. When we talk about heading tags, that means they will have to go through the trouble of typing things like this, and they'll have to add something like this, and going through this trouble takes a lot of time. And so as a writer, I always tell my people that I train that, and my team members, to use these options here. It makes things so much easier. If you don't want to use this, you can also use the H1 tag. This title tag is also good. Then of course there will be the introduction. You can change this here to 3 reasons. This goes off. Then we talk about the introduction here. Then this will be our H2. This will be our H2. This will be our H2. Like I said, I would subcategorize these. So this is here. Okay, and this will be the conclusion. Now, why I'm not paying attention to these, because I don't usually make a subheading or subtitle, introduction and conclusion. I will just go to the point. And since I did my research here, I will just read the introduction here a bit and give myself an idea about how to start my introduction. Breathtaking natural landscapes, this sounds good. Sorry, let's look at this one's introduction. Australia is one of the more countries, ironically one of the most popular. Now what I do is I usually copy these out and I paste them on Notepad. Doing this clears the formatting, because sometimes if we copy and paste content directly from our website, it can mess up the settings in our own page. Let me even do it and see. It might happen. It only okay, it didn't happen. Sometimes if you paste content, this goes messed up. So that's why I always discourage pasting directly. Always paste it on a notepad and then paste it there. Let's clear this formatting here. Now I highlight this in yellow because it helps me separate what I've copy pasted from my own original content, and this kind of saves me from getting plagiarism issues. So this is my style. You don't need to follow it completely, but this is just, I just told you in the beginning of the video that I will show you how I start working on my content. So this is it. Now I will rephrase what I am seeing on the screen here. Just give me a moment to read it. Okay, I think I will start with this. My points are talking about okay, this is my introduction, and then I will talk about natural beauty. Um, Depends on how you want to phrase it. Let's see. I'm just going to keep it short, just for the sake of this video. We can talk about beaches. Uh, Mention some famous beaches. You'll have to do your research on that. And just write something about the beaches. Mention 2 or 3 beaches. Talk about the sand, having fun underwater, scuba diving, things like that. You can talk about the climate. That there's a variety. If you're going there for let's say a span of 3 weeks, 5 weeks, or 3 months, encourage the reader, think out of the box, be entertaining, be interesting. Talk about the sunset and then the wildlife. Now, when I come to the conclusion, I would like to wrap it all up. I can start with in a nutshell. Something like that. And now what I want to show you is this flow. The subheadings are going to be connected to one another. And make sure that you fix your grammar like this, in a nutshell. Now you see, because I'm writing for American English, these are options that Microsoft Word suggests, so always keep an eye here and make sure you correct all of these things yourself. I use Grammarly here, so install Grammarly for your Word files, and it will also help you proofread your content and fix some typographical errors that we do not see at a glance. See, look at this. I'm used to writing for British and American English, so it becomes a bit confusing, and Grammarly helps sort this out. So Australia, it's suggesting that I use a comma with this here. Historic, living in the historic locations. It should be in the historic locations. See, that's typographical error here. Okay, this is this and this. So I hope you're getting an idea about how to write content and how to edit it. Now, one more important thing I would like to say is, when I talked about think out of the box, one important point I forgot to mention is, you see this part here. People also ask, if you want to make your content high quality, then you should look at these questions and revert them and add them to your content, because this will help your content rank on Google. If anybody searches this topic and your article has, let's say, all these questions answered, then your content will have a better chance of ranking on top. Okay, so always use this as a guide and to get more ideas for your content and plan your content accordingly. So if suppose if I was writing a 500 words or 1000 words content, I would also throw in this question. I would do that here. Let me just turn this off here. I would rephrase this. I can make a subheading like this. I can throw it here maybe, and here I can talk about affordability, a new environment, refreshing, things like that. After that I can talk, these reasons will follow. Any other questions that are relevant here? Why is Australia beautiful? Maybe I can oh, look, this question is here also. I would use this to get some more ideas and plan my content and make it even more better. The more questions I can answer in this article, the richer it would be in terms of information, and the more high quality content it would be. Now you can see here, after making those changes, there are no errors. This is very important. Okay, And in our coming lectures, I will explain more about certain settings that we need to do in Microsoft Word that help us ensure that we satisfy other requirements for high quality content articles. Uh, that will be all for this lecture, and I hope to catch you in the next lecture. In the meantime, make sure you read these notes, and if you have any questions, feel free to drop them and I'll get back to you with answers. Thank you for your time.